Michael Jackson tried to warn everyone about the Epstein class for years, specifically the Sony CEO and Epstein friend, Tommy Mottola.
And Tommy Mottola is a devil.
He wrote songs that were held back from release about girls being sexually abused in Hollywood, where he sang the words, "Now she's on the move, she's off to Hollywood. She says she wanna be a star, she heard the money's good. She gets off from the train station, a man is waiting there. I'll show you where the money is, girl, just let down your hair." And we ignored all of it. But now, the world is realizing that the warnings he gave us weren't just the ravings of a megastar unraveling.
Disgraced Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein has been indicted on rape and criminal sex act charges.
Breaking news, billionaire Jeffrey Epstein arrested on new trafficking charges.
When you realize why they hated him, the threat he posed to their media empire, and his plan to expose all of them, everything about Michael Jackson's warnings starts to make sense.
We could easily go into Universal and buy, we would own Jaws, E.T., Close Encounters, and that will allow us to do a Universal. Part of the Marvel channel can be not only the Marvel characters, but Marvel films. We could do anything we want, from restaurants to retail, theme parks.
Then came the scandal court cases. Disney ended up buying Marvel and doing exactly what Michael had predicted and making a fortune at it. Tell me about this.
And in the end, his attempts to tell the truth cost him his life.
Because first of all, Michael told me that they were going to murder him. He was afraid. He was afraid for his life. The people that were involved in his life, the people that were controlling him.
Both the Los Angeles Times and CBS News are both now reporting that Michael Jackson has died.
But before his suspicious death, Jackson had transcended industry-level fame. Surveys put him alongside the Queen and Jesus Christ as the most recognized figures on Earth. His shows had huge medical teams throughout the crowds, as audience members, sometimes up to 3,000, would faint upon seeing him enter the stage. And all he had to do was just stand there. So when he stopped using his voice just to sing, and instead used it to warn about the entertainment industry's exploitative behavior, he quickly became the ultimate anti-establishment figure. And this would terrify the elites. You see, Jackson only met Jeffrey Epstein once. In 2003, he was looking for a house in Palm Beach, and his team introduced him to a man who had one to sell. It was Epstein. But the man he would actually warn us about over and over was Tommy Mottola, a close friend of Epstein who was mentioned hundreds of times in the Epstein files. Tommy Mottola is a big figure in the world of entertainment, and not just music. His contacts spread deep into all areas of the media world. In the 1980s, Jackson wrote a song called "Do You Know Where Your Kids Are?" It tells the common story of an abused girl who runs off to Hollywood only to be abused by executives in the entertainment industry all over again. It was obviously never allowed to be released, but when it was released after Jackson's death, people started connecting the dots and realized this was another of Jackson's warnings about systemic abuse in entertainment. And when the Epstein files are released years later, they show Epstein tried to buy EMI, a huge record label, to get better access to young women. And the man he wanted to put in charge of all of it is none other than his good friend, Tommy Mottola. Yes, the man whose reputation was mired in allegations of child abuse openly tried to warn the world about the very abuse in the industry decades before the true scale of the abuse was known. Unearthed emails and phone records show Mottola and Epstein were in regular contact. In 2019, just before Epstein's final arrest, Tommy, who maintained contact with Epstein even after he was a registered sex offender, gave Epstein contact details for a private investigator. And when Epstein thanked him, he said Epstein never had to say thank you to him. In 2017, he also asked Epstein for advice after he got caught up in a still unknown incident at a hotel in Palm Beach. Quote, "I don't have to do anything, just shut up and lay low," he asked Epstein. Epstein responds by telling Mottola, "You're safe." After Epstein reassures him that he is safe from whatever has happened, Mottola then says, "Thank you, I love you, man." Rolling Stone reports that Epstein even used Mottola's name to impress and obtain contact details for young aspiring female musicians, saying he'd forward their work onto the Sony CEO and "You're gonna meet Tommy." In a grainy clip surfaced from 2003, long before the scale of Epstein and his circle's abuse was known, Jackson reveals to the world the truth about Epstein's friend Mottola.
And I really want you to hear what I have to say.
He then stops the music and asks people not to record.
Please don't videotape what I'm going to say, okay? Turn that off, please.
He wants to warn the crowd just how bad this man is, and you can see that he's worried about the consequences.
I'm not supposed to say what I'm gonna say right now.
Jackson then tells a story about Mariah Carey. She was married to Mottola and revealed to Jackson how evil he was as a person. Carey told Jackson that Mottola was abusive, controlling, dangerous, and that he had her followed everywhere.
Mariah Carey, after divorcing Tommy, came to me crying. She was crying so badly I had to hold her. And she said to me that this is an evil man. And Michael, this man follows me, she said. He taps her phones. And he's very, very evil. And she doesn't trust him. And he is a horrible human being.
And Jackson doesn't stop there, because he didn't just warn us about record labels and powerful executives. He actually hit back at them, and he calls on the cheering crowd to terminate Mottola and save the artist from men like him.
We have to continue our drive until he's terminated.
Oh! There you go!
We can't allow him to do this to great artistry. We just can't.
The crowd cheer as they always do with Michael Jackson, but it's clear from his face that the jubilant crowd cheering isn't the reaction he's expecting after dropping bombshells about the most powerful man in music. And it's only years later, after he's already outed Mottola, that Mariah Carey releases her autobiography, where she writes about the alleged abuse she suffered at his hands. She was only 24 years old when she married Mottola, and he was 20 years older than her. And his good friend Robert De Niro was his best man. And her memoirs paint a really creepy picture of being surrounded by all these powerful older men who saw her beauty, talent, and potential and then took advantage of it. She wrote that her every move was monitored, controlled when and where she went, where she was only allowed to leave the mansion with his permission, even hiring armed guards to search for her if she ever left without it.
But is it true that you would head for a cheeseburger at McDonald's and you'd be getting phone calls on your cell phone? Where the heck are you going?
Basically, yeah.
Allegedly, one day at a dinner party in front of his friends, Mottola took a knife and drew that flat side of it across her face. And it was in this moment she realized she needed to escape. After the divorce, she then claimed he used his power to destroy her career and ruin the success of her album Glitter. And according to Michael Jackson, this wasn't the first or last time. But Michael Jackson was making a fatal move here, because not only is he warning the world about powerful executives in the media industry, he was also leaving the label, and with it taking away one of their biggest sources of revenue.
I've generated several $1 billion for Sony. Several billion. They really thought that my mind is always on music and dancing, and they never thought that this performer, myself, would outthink them. We can't let them get away with what they're trying to do. And I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me because of it, but the way they get revenge is to try and destroy my album.
Sony spent $30 million making Invincible, but only $25 million promoting it, and the result was his weakest solo album ever. Its producer, Dark Child, later admits in an interview that it was a deliberate move in the face of Jackson's feud with Sony.
Oh yeah, it got halted for sure.
And while producers who worked with and supported Jackson were happy to say this after his death, Jackson himself tried desperately to warn the world of how he and other artists were being exploited and used by executives like Tommy. As many of you will know, Michael was thrown into the industry at only 5 years old, and by early adulthood, he knew more intimately than anyone that stars are just another person's asset. While other kids go to school and make their first friends, he's in a recording studio working to earn someone else's fortune.
As a little kid, I was always busy. I remember across the street from Motown recording studio, there was a park. I would feel kind of sad because I wanted to go to that park, but I knew I had a different job to do.
In 2002, outside Sony's New York offices, Jackson whips up a crowd to tear into Sony and Tommy. But sexual abuse, control, and the Epstein class were only one side of Jackson's warnings. While we all laughed and ridiculed him and gobbled up all the stories about him abusing children put out by a media industry that he was warning about, Jackson was actively telling people he was going to be murdered by that same industry. Not just because he was calling it out, but because he was his crown jewel, and he wanted out. And to do this, he was going to take his empire with him.
And it's a huge catalog, it's very valuable, it's worth a lot of money, and there is a big site going on right now as we speak about that. I can't comment on it. There's a lot of conspiracy. I'll say there's a lot of conspiracy going on as we speak.
But it was only after his death when his sister said this on television, and finally, people started taking his warning seriously.
He told me over and over and over. When he first told me, Latoya, they're gonna kill me. I said, who, Michael? First I thought you're Michael Jackson. Nobody in their right mind would ever think of doing anything like this to you. That's what you think. He says, no, but you don't understand. And then I saw how serious he was. He said, it's bigger than what you think. I said, well, Michael, what is it? He said, it's my publishing. They're after my publishing. They want to take it. As you guys know, my brother had one of the largest catalogs in the world, meaning music-wise.
The Beatles collection was one of them.
He owned the Beatles, yes.
Just like Michael, Latoya was made out at the time to be a crazy woman, looking to piggyback off the media buzz around her brother's death. But it's undeniable that by becoming the biggest star in the world, Michael made himself the most valuable colony to a ruthless empire, and they would rather see it burn before they let it be independent.
People come into your life, wiggle their way in, control you, manipulate, control your funds, your finances, everything that you have, and you must do what they tell you to do. And that's what Michael was going through.
What they didn't expect is that Jackson understands this. Somewhere in that instinct that had been sharpened since he was 5 years old, Michael knew that fame without ownership is just a gilded cage with a bigger lock. Remember how we mentioned he saw the true value in rights to music and entertainment assets? Well, in 1985, Jackson pays $47.5 million for ATV Music Publishing. Now, ATV owns all of the Beatles, Elvis, Bruce Springsteen, Rolling Stones, Cher and Little Richard's catalogs. Even Paul McCartney and Yoko Ono passed up with the opportunity when given the first bid, not seeing what this would be worth down the line. Now, the value of music catalogs is pretty well known today. Taylor Swift even re-recorded all of her masters to take back control of her music from Scooter Braun.
You probably don't know this, but most of your favorite artists do not own their work. The music industry is, you know?
But in the 80s, it wasn't understood just how much power this ownership gives you. But Jackson, who'd been owned his whole life, foresaw that value and bought the ATV with his unmatched music rights.
You know, the trouble is, I wrote him for nothing.
Right.
And buying them back at these phenomenal sums, it's just...
It rubs you the wrong way.
I can't do it.
With his purchase came immense power to control the direction of music and the artists making it. Control that until then had always been held by the elites in the music industry. Elites that also spread all the way across the media world, music, film and TV, newspapers and broadcasters. And he's planning a master move that would be the ultimate coup. One that would put him above the Motalas and Weinsteins of entertainment and make him not just the most powerful figure in music, but in entertainment entirely. He wanted to buy Marvel and Universal, and he already had the financing in place.
We could easily go into Universal and buy. That will allow us to do a Universal Marvel channel, not only the Marvel characters, but Marvel films. We could do anything we want, from restaurants to retail, theme parks.
Then came the scandal court cases. Disney ended up buying Marvel and doing exactly what Michael had predicted and making a fortune at it.
He was going to change the world and finally do what he always said to do in his music and bring the world together and expose the truth. Marvel was just a failing comic book company at this point. There was no Avengers franchise, no Universal theme park in Florida, nothing. And as Disney has shown us, it would have made him tens of billions and made him the most powerful man in entertainment, influencing the hearts and minds of the world, finally bringing people together. Then came the scandals.
Overnight, they called me a freak. They called me a homosexual. They called me a...
Now, it's also worth saying that Jackson doesn't do himself any favors. His physical changes alarm a lot of people, and the optics of some of his behavior is awful. But he does always stand up to his detractors, pointing towards the correlation between his warnings about fame and control and the rise in attacks on him.
I want to set the record straight, that if people hear a lie long enough, people believe it.
But look at the timeline. Every time Jackson makes a move against the industry by buying catalogs, calling out Motala by name, or planning the acquisitions that would have made him the most powerful figure in entertainment, the attacks on him just escalate. The accusations then grow louder and the ridicule intensifies. But the elites of entertainment don't just want to destroy his reputation now. They want his catalogs, they want his ideas for Marvel and Universal, and most of all, they want him out of the way for good. They do not want this man speaking his opinions and changing the world. And there's a way to get all of that, and here he really doesn't help himself, because if there's one thing Michael Jackson is better at than making money, it's spending it. And with sponsorship nowhere in sight in the face of the allegations and legal troubles, less money than he usually makes off a new album, and the lifestyle of a Roman emperor, Jackson was in serious debt. He's been taking out loans against his ATV catalog, but it's the one thing he won't actually sell, so he needs to find a way to make some serious money fast. But at 50 years old, traumatized from years of legal battles, and with some serious health conditions, it's the last thing he wants to do, a tour.
These will be my final show performances in London. This will be it. This is it. And when I say this is it, it really means this is it.
10 draining shows in a massive venue under intense global scrutiny is already a lot to ask, but it only gets worse when, despite only agreeing to 10, those above him increase that to 50 shows. A truly insane amount, even if he were still 25 years old.
Michael wasn't capable of doing these shows that he was supposed to do. Michael only agreed to do 10, and it's because they had him on such a tight rope.
His sister makes it very clear that that was never possible, and everyone around him knew it. So why then was he forced to do something he was physically incapable of?
But it was a conspiracy, and a lot of people were involved in this, and they know who they are, and they're very afraid of what I might say, of what my brother has told me.
Well, his sister has been vocal in saying this was all deliberate, that those controlling him weren't just pushing the shows because they wanted the extra revenue, but because they wanted him pushed over the edge. And while we'll probably never know if that was the intent, that is exactly what happened. Soon, just the rehearsals are so demanding that Jackson is being administered a controversially strong drug, to help him manage, except they don't help him. He becomes addicted and rapidly declines to a point where his health is hanging on by a thread, and he's unable to bear going through a full day without being heavily medicated. He was never going to do the shows, and shortly before they're due to begin, he then dies of an overdose in very shady circumstances, taking a drug that he should never have been taking, administered in an extremely dangerous way, to the point that his doctor was convicted and sent to prison for 4 years, although he only served 2. And the worst part? Well, that's what happens next. In 2016, Sony finally got their wish. The thing they've had their sights on since the 80s. They took full control of the music catalogue Jackson had built up over decades, the ATV publishing rights, Beatles, Elvis, even Jackson's, for $750 million. Not only that, but its value has just surged massively. Because when musical legends can't be owned in life, the next big thing is owning them in death. Jackson's death is a monumental event, and he sells like it's 1983 all over again. Everyone is buying or playing his music. He's the most talked about man on earth. Every television channel, radio stations, every newspaper, they're all giving wall-to-wall Michael Jackson coverage. His sales make $90 million in the first year after his death, but Sony don't just stop there. They make a This Is It film, and an album to accompany it, which between them grossed $250 million. They also buy the exploitation rights off of the Michael Jackson estate, giving the company the rights to release albums in his name even after his death. Whether what happened to him was coordinated, coincidental, or deliberate, we'll never truly know, but what we do know is that a man who understood power like only a victim of it can ended up broken, and dead at only 50 years old. And his message of a better humanity was widely ignored, and the people he named and exposed kept all of the money.
Michael constantly told me, Latoya, they're going to murder me, they're going to kill me.